that's true. Naked Palpatine.
Oh, you pick that one. Fresh out of the clone tank, nude Palpatine is my
Well, that's the first thing I think of when you say Dark Empire Palpatine.
Hello everybody, I need a weapon, and welcome back to the Halo Expanded Universe, except not the Expanded Universe, just the actual games, because today I have for you the latest game we have, till a new one is released. We have Halo Infinite. I mean, non-spoiled, the game's pretty old already, which is sad to say because it felt like this game is brand new, but this game came out in like 2019. So, or 2020. The time of recording this, we are so very, very close to 2025. And so, the game came out in 2021, I think, actually. But still, it's a few years old now. Apologies. My throat does not feel the best. In a lot of ways, this is a step up from Halo 5. In terms of gameplay, in terms of the story. But in a lot of ways, it's also lesser. Say whatever you want about Halo 5, but the story felt big. It felt galaxy spanning by the end. This is so much of a course correction. So much of trying to fix what came before, while also setting up things for the future. That ultimately what you're left with is a very small scale, even more small scale story than Halo CE. Sure, it's a similar setup, you're on a ring. However, in Halo 1, you were trying to stop the rings from being fired, which would destroy all sentient life in the galaxy, while also stopping the Flood, who would consume everything in the galaxy. This time, we do not have that problem. Nobody's threatening to activate the Halo ring. The Banished want it so that they can have a place to live, and so that they can use it as a deterrent against Cortana, like how we all have nukes in our day and age. They don't even show any inkling that they want to fire it, because what would be the point? They want to be in control. They simply want to be able to tell Cortana to piss off, because we have a ring. Meanwhile, Cortana wants it just so they can't do that. But ultimately what this turns out to be is something so small in the grand scheme. However, it tells such an intimate story, I feel, for Master Chief, for Cortana wrapping that up in its roundabout way, that it turns out to be rather beautiful. However, it's also setting up a lot of things without getting any payoff. The thing that worked about Halo CE was the fact that it not only introduced the mystery of the Flood, it then provided the answer at the end of the game. Now, they left it to where it could have been that was it, because they blew up the ring with the Flood. But they made a sequel. They found other ways of bringing the Flood back. But they still had the Flood, introduced the Flood, killed the Flood, all in one game. This story introduces us to the Endless, which is so vague and obtuse as to what it is that we're not exactly sure. Supposedly greater threat than the Flood. Press X to doubt. But supposedly, the Endless are this big thing that have been wronged in the past by the Forerunners. I mean, my only logical deduction to make is that it is, in fact, the precursors, or that they are some sort of offshoot race of them. I mean, the only person we meet, the Harbinger lady in this game, even looks a lot like, you know, a unflooded version of the Promethean, or sorry, the Primordial from the Great Bear trilogy. So I don't know. But we don't have an answer, so I can't provide you one. We'll have to wait and see. At the point of this recording, 343 Studios is no longer in charge. We now have Halo Studios, which is, they fired a bunch of people from 343, so we have basically a whole new team. Some people stayed, but we got basically a new team. Will they follow through with any of this? I don't know. I hope so. I hope they don't continue to follow the course of 343 and just completely ignore the game that came before. But as for right now, we have no answers. We have no clue as to what that all means. As it stands, is it a better game in total than Halo 4 and 5? I'd say gameplay-wise, not that I'm a big gameplay reviewer, like I don't do that. I think so. I think there's a genuine case to be made that gameplay-wise it is superior in every way to Halo 4 and 5. Plot-wise is where things get a bit more tricky. Now, as you all remember, people hated Halo 5. So Halo Infinite tries to course correct, heavily so. We basically completely skip over Cortana's control of everything, and on her own, she has fixed her ways. She is now a good guy again. She has rectified her ways for John, which works emotionally, but at the same time, all that happened off screen. We have some new characters. We have the Pilot Echo, and this new AI, the Weapon, who doesn't get a name by the end of this game, by the way. I'm sorry. But that was also done phenomenally well. I really like the trio, and I hope they come back in another game. Even if Echo is only relegated to, I don't know, being in like a pelican and dropping Master Chief off, even if he doesn't get any scenes in future game, I hope they keep him around, because I genuinely really like him. And then, the Banish. They're the big threat. They're our excuse to have the same Covenant species to kill. And that's really it. I mean, there are audio logs that make it a little bit more interesting. But by and large, the Banished are just an excuse to have the Covenant races. They're not that compelling, and they're not that interesting. Escharum, I remember being so cool back when I was 20. I just spent a few years. I'm going to be 24 in a month. By the time you're watching this, I'm already. I just found him annoying and aggravating. There was nothing really deep about him. He just liked to monologue back and forth. And nothing with him I haven't seen before in another brute character. So it's whatever. Aatrox, which is the coolest, new villain we've had outside of Cortana, which is a complicated issue. He seemingly dies for most of the story. He's not dead, but he is seemingly dead for the entirety of the plot. So, seeing him utterly and just destroy Master Chief in the beginning was very cool. But as I said, by and large, I think the story was too much of a course correction. Instead of addressing Halo 5, it just kind of, happened, it's over, it's done, sorry, let's move past that. While also trying to introduce an entirely new faction, while not making anything really super interesting itself. I mean, I have no idea where the story is even going, moving forward. As for the personal story for Master Chief, I did rather enjoy that. But for the overarching space opera, military sci-fi, that Halo kind of is, it's a small... It's like World War II versus a bank robbery. Like, both are kind of a big deal, especially if you're in that bank when it's happening. But World War II, some bank robbery. That's what Infinite feels like. Those are my thoughts, not spoilers. I'm gonna get into spoilers if you don't want that. Time to go. So, Attack on the Infinity, Chief versus Atriox. This happens at the very beginning. The Rubicon Protocol book that I have reviewed already does give slightly more information that they were actually like ambushing. They were, I guess, I am still a little lost now. They figured out how to triangulate where the Infinity would kind of land, but they ended up ambushing the Infinity and started attacking. So there's this epic beginning fight with Atriox and Chief, and Atriox just annihilates him. Basically, you know, Master Chief's armor's locked up, and he basically goes into a coma for 6 months. And over the course of 6 months, as that entire book, Rubicon Protocol, happened, which you can see a lot of that in the game itself if you just listen to the audio logs and stuff. But you get a little bit more in-depth story of all the Spartans and soldiers that died in that 6-month gap of Master Chief being asleep if you read Rubicon Protocol. We get introduced to the pilot Echo, and there's a beautiful transition at the very beginning where he's trying to escape, and he's, you know, bald, he's got no facial hair, and he looks at a picture, or at this little video, of his wife and kid. Like, hologram thing. And he looks at it, and the camera pans around, and as it pans around, he now has a full head of hair and a full-on beard, which signifies a time jump, which I thought was really well done. By the time we see the ring, Zeta Halo, it is broken. We learn in Rubicon Protocol that that Cortana actually used a Guardian to blow up part of it. Estrom is the main villain. We've seen him a few times. We saw him in Divine Wind a little bit. Again, I've made my peace on him in non-spoiler. I don't feel any different. He does have a nice little moment before he dies, you know, because one thing that this game seems to really do is more so than any other, because, yeah, Master Chief's always been kind of like the self-insert, and he kind of became more of his own character in 4 and 5, and this is a little bit of a mix of the two, where he still talks. He's still not you anymore. He hasn't been you ever, but he really is truly not like just like an insert you here now anymore, as opposed to the first game. But he's very much becoming this sort of Superman character. You know, somebody that inspires. And he recognizes that he inspires, so he tries to go with that. It's kind of subtle, but you notice that through the game, especially with Echo, that he is becoming like this aspirational figure. We also get introduced to a new AI that was meant to kill Cortana, and apparently successfully did, by the name of The Weapon. Also voiced by Jen Taylor. I wonder why that is. Yeah, but Cortana's been defeated off screen. We'll get more as the game goes on, but rather unsatisfactory the first time you hear it. We get flashbacks throughout the game, but we get to see Halsey personally give Cortana to Master Chief. We see Spartan Griffin, who we read about in Rubicon Protocol, and you could read, or you can listen to some of his audio in this game, but, you know, he was being suffered and tortured, and Master Chief, you know, lays him to rest. We also learned that Blue Team in an audio log is on a mission, so they were not on the Infinity when it blew up, so which would explain why the rest of them aren't here. Locke was also apparently on a mission with the rest of Osiris, so now remember, Buck is now with his ODSTs again, as a new Spartan 4 team. So I don't know if the Osiris team is still just 3 people, or if it's 4 again, if they got a new 4th person, but they weren't on the ship either. We meet a monitor named Despondent Pyre. And then we meet the Harbinger / the Endless, So again, we get this whole idea that there are these people that were wronged by the Forerunners and were kept a big secret, and that's all that we really know. And they're supposedly worse than the Flood, but they've given no evidence to support such a claim. Again, the only way that seemingly makes sense to me is if this is basically undead, like not still alive precursors. Because seemingly, right, because the Flood is just like a corrupted version of the precursors, it's just all their anger and malice and hatred. So if the precursors could like control the Flood, where like they can't get sick from it, but they can direct it, kind of like a grave mind. You know, but that could be disastrous. But that's all I can really think of. Otherwise, I legit don't know in any way, shape, or form how they can be worse than the Flood. There's also some stuff with time that is only vague because we don't have any true answers to that yet. Does the Endless have something to do with like time travel or time manipulation? I'm not exactly sure, but I still don't know how that would be worse than the Flood. But anyway, the Harbinger says that they're coming, the Endless are coming, time for the Forerunners to face their sins. She says a couple lines that are similar to the Gravemind. I don't know. I really love the dynamic of Echo, Chief, and the weapon, though. I think they make a great team. Oh. Identifying where the rest of my notes. I was kind of finding Echo, the pilot, annoying for half the game because he kept crying and complaining. I'm like, you're a soldier. But actually, we learn later on when he has like a huge tantrum that Echo was a civilian contractor trying to do his part, trying to help out. So he ran away when the fighting on the Infinity was going on. He took a Pelican and just left. But he's not a soldier. He is a civilian. But he feels like a failure because he left everyone. Even though, I mean, what could he have really done? But this is what I mean about the aspirational hero aspect, because Master Chief, gets down on one knee, big shake of the camera. I love that. And he says, we all fail. We all make mistakes. And he's like, how have you ever failed? You're Master Chief. And he's like, I failed Cortana. I could have talked her down. I should have been able to stop her. I failed her. I will not fail you. And it's just, it's inspiring. And it truly speaks to Master Chief's character. And I really love that scene. I think it's one of my favorite scenes in the entire game. We see the animosity and this sort of untrust that Master Chief has for the weapon for some reason. And at some point even tries to delete her. We also get a slight connection to the books, because this isn't set anywhere outside of this game, that the Spartan 4 training facility has been destroyed, which we learn about in New Blood, or Bad Blood, sorry, which has Spartan Buck in it. We also learn that apparently off screen that all of Sydney, like Australia or something, I think, was blown up by Cortana. Then we get the big revelation near the end of the game, which is that the weapon herself is a copy of Cortana. She was made to be an exact sort of copy so that she could go in and kill Cortana, which gives her some existential dread, because she doesn't want to be like Cortana. She doesn't want to do what Cortana did. So, then Ashram dies, they have the big battle. Echo's like, you show them respect. Why? And Master Chief was like, because Echo's like, he's a monster. And Master Chief's like, he's just a soldier, doing what he thought was right. I love that. So as far as this game is concerned, we'll talk about Epitaph next week. But as far as this game is concerned, Chief's seeming demise at the hands of Aatrox at the beginning of the game was the catalyst for changing Cortana. Because Cortana, after she blows up Doisek, right, the home of the brutes, the Jinnahali, spits basically in Aatrox's face. And Aatrox says how you will pay. We see this like flashback. This happened before the beginning of Infinite. And then, Aatrox leaves, Chief to die. And as Cortana thinks about that and why she's doing everything she does, which is ultimately for John, it makes her change. And then she asks Aatrox a simple question. If you knew you were going to die, how would you live your life differently? Aatrox shouts from the top of his lungs, I would change nothing. Which seems to confirm something for Cortana as she seemingly changes her mind. And she gives a big apology to Chief. We get this whole thing. She says how the power got to her head. She, realized she thought she had to protect Chief and everyone else. She thought she could do it on her own, but she forgot the whole reason that the original trilogy worked so well is because that her and Chief worked as a team. And so she actually allowed herself to die. She wanted the weapon to be a redo for her and Chief. So she willingly allowed herself to die so that Chief could have a redo with a new relationship with his new AI, the weapon. We do not get the weapon's name by the end of the book for some reason, because she was supposed to make up her own name. But we do get Echo's name, which is Fernando Esparza. And at the end of the game, Aatrox finds something. We're not exactly sure what, but he finds something. And then here's the Halo multiplayer of Infinite. I don't have much to tell you, but in the seasons, they would start with like little cutscenes. We begin with something wrong with the Spartan helmet. There's like this weird banished AI inside his helmet. So he's like in a coma. And then he finally wakes up. And then there's this weird ominous Oni door. And your player character and him go down this Oni place. And this banished AI takes over a Spartan suit. Looks all scary. And so far, that's all there is. Does it matter? Probably not, but that's what I have to tell you so far about the Infinite multiplayer storyline. Whatever. Ultimately, I really enjoyed Halo Infinite. I have my gripes with it, I have my flaws with it, but I think it's a good time. I think it's better than 4 and 5 in terms of gameplay-wise. I think it's a lot more fun to play, and I admire them trying to fix Halo 5. Though I hate that they kind of ignored it at the same time. I mean, they didn't ignore it. They addressed it. But just kind of in an unsatisfactory way, in my opinion. Anyway, that's pretty much it, guys. Thank you all so much for watching. Next time I see you, we'll be with Halo Epitaph. And then, maybe I've uploaded a review by now. But by February, there should be a new Halo book. But outside of that, I will have read every single Halo story out there. Till next time, let's finish the fight.